There is a planet in the Imperium where a frog can kill an entire army. Not metaphorically, not with poison. It explodes. One frog, 1 kilometer radius. Every biological organism within that range, space marines included, reduced to a wet stain on the jungle floor. That frog is not the most dangerous thing on Catachan, not even close. Only 25% of children born here survive to become teenagers. The ones who do? The Imperium drafts them immediately, because a Catachan teenager with a homemade knife is more dangerous than most trained soldiers in the galaxy. This is your life on the deadliest planet in existence. You'd already be dead. Comment below, Straken or Sly Marbo. One choice. Defend it. Subscribe if you survived reading that first paragraph. You didn't choose Catachan. Nobody does. The colonists who first landed here during the dark age of technology didn't choose it either. Their ships came down hard. Emergency landing protocols. No way back up. They stepped outside and the jungle looked beautiful, lush, green, alive. That was the last mistake a lot of them ever made. Within the first week, the jungle was actively besieging the ships. Not attacking, besieging, patient. The kind of siege that doesn't need siege engines because the walls come to it eventually. The colonists who survived that first month didn't survive by fighting the jungle. They survived by understanding something fundamental. Catachan is not a place that tolerates weakness. It doesn't hate you. It doesn't want to kill you. It simply operates at a level where your death is a side effect of everything else going on. Let's talk about what you're actually dealing with. The Catachan Devil is the apex predator of the planet, and the reason the entire regiment is named after it. An insectoid nightmare that can grow up to 30 meters long. 30 meters. That's the length of a small convoy vehicle, with legs, with claws the size of tank pinchers, and with a nest full of juveniles that bury themselves underground specifically to ambush things from below. The moment you think you're safe, standing on solid ground, you're standing on a Catachan Devil's waiting room. The xenobiologists at the Administratum have a theory that the devil might be a tyrannid vanguard organism that got separated from its hive fleet 10,000 years ago, went feral, and just kept evolving. Nobody has confirmed this theory because everyone who got close enough to study it properly is dead. But the devil isn't what makes Catachan genuinely unique as a threat to human life. That honor belongs to the Catachan barking toad. It looks like a frog, small, unremarkable, the kind of thing you'd step over without thinking. When threatened, and threatened in Catachan terms means anything that moves within its awareness. It detonates. The explosion releases a toxin cloud with a 1 kilometer kill radius. The toxin penetrates sealed respirators. It penetrates power armor. It penetrates space marine biology, which is specifically engineered to survive chemical warfare that would kill a normal human 40 times over. Everything biological within that radius becomes a formless mass. The ground stays sterile for years. There are no rules for the barking toad in any official Imperial tactical manual because the tactical manual answer is, don't be near it. The lesser Catachan barking toad, the smaller version, only 10 meters of kill radius, has one documented behavioral quirk. It doesn't detonate near Catachan jungle fighters. The xenobiologists think it recognizes apex predators. They think the toad understands on some chemical or instinctual level that a Catachan soldier is categorically something you do not threaten. That's the planet you were born on. If you think the danger has legs and teeth, you're already dead. On Catachan, even the chlorophyll is hunting you. The green you see on the horizon isn't a forest. It's a planetary-scale digestive system waiting for you to take a deep breath. The brain leaf looks like nothing. It grows everywhere, blends into the canopy, unremarkable in every visual sense. When it makes contact with skin, it fires tendrils directly into the spine and the brain and takes over. Not kills, takes over. The victim stays alive, stays conscious, gets used as a puppet to help the plant move through the jungle, attract other organisms, spread seeds. You are awake for this. You experience everything. You just can't stop it. The leading administratum theory is that the brain leaf is a tyrannid cortical leech variant that was cut off from the hive mind so long ago that it went insane and started freelancing. Catachan children learn to identify it by the time they can walk. The ones who don't learn fast enough serve as fertilizer. The face eater hangs near water sources and low branches. It waits. When you get close, it launches itself directly at your face with the force of a sprung trap and clamps down. Here is the specific horror of the face eater. Any damage you do to it transfers to you. You cannot cut it off without cutting yourself. You cannot shoot it off without shooting yourself. It begins digesting you while you're still alive, and when you finally die, it lays eggs in the body that hatch within hours. The jungle recycles efficiently. The blood wasps don't need an explanation. They strip you to bone in under an hour. The vein worms sedate you first so you don't feel them entering your bloodstream. The barbed venom gorse injects neurotoxins that make you walk toward it. The breathweed infects your tongue and eventually replaces it. There is a plant called grappleweed that drags you into its digestive cavity using barbed tentacles. The air on Catachan carries spores. The water attracts things. There is no safe position. You are 5 years old on this planet, and this is Tuesday. 50% of children born on Catachan don't survive childhood. Of those who survive childhood, 50% don't make it to 10 years old. The math lands at roughly 1 in 4 humans born on Catachan reaching adolescence. 1 in 4. In the 41st millennium, a planet with those survival odds would normally be quarantined, abandoned, or exterminatus. Catachan is not quarantined. It is not abandoned. It produces the finest light infantry in the Astra Militarum, and the Imperium understands that the selection process, brutal, merciless, entirely conducted by the planet itself, produces a quality of soldier that cannot be replicated by any training program anywhere in the galaxy. The ones who survive are not lucky. They are selected. Now you're a soldier. You didn't apply. Nobody applies to be a Catachan jungle fighter. The regiment finds you when you're old enough to hold a laser gun without falling over. On most Imperial worlds, recruitment involves paperwork, physical evaluations, psychological assessments, months of basic training in a controlled facility. On Catachan, recruitment involves someone handing you a uniform and telling you that the thing you've been doing your whole life now has an official name. You've been a soldier since you were 6. You just weren't getting paid. The Catachan jungle fighters are light infantry, no heavy armor, no Lehman Russ formations, no massed artillery support. They operate in small units, deep in hostile terrain, with limited supply lines and no expectation of reinforcement. They are the specialists you deploy when the jungle is the enemy, and you need people who grew up inside the enemy. The Astra Militarum has sent Catachan regiments to every kind of death world, every kind of contested jungle or swamp terrain, every environment where the environment itself is trying to kill everything on both sides equally. The Catachans treat this as a vacation. Relatively speaking, the uniform is practical. Sleeveless shirt, bandana, no unnecessary weight. Other regiments wear their armor and carry their gear like pack animals. Catachans wear as little as possible because on Catachan, armor that slows you down is armor that kills you. Speed and silence are survival. The jungle fighter who stops to adjust their kit is the one the face eater finds. The knife is not optional. Every Catachan forged their first knife with their parents, not bought, not issued, forged. The Devil's Claw, named for the planet's apex predator, is between 3 and 4 feet of hollow-bladed steel, the cavity filled halfway with mercury to increase momentum. It is closer to a short sword than a knife by the standards of any other culture in the Imperium. Other soldiers carry combat knives as backup weapons. Catachans carry their knives the way other soldiers carry their identity. When senior officers receive promotion, their power swords are almost always designed in the shape of the devil's claw. The honor runs that deep. The orcs have a name for the blade. They call it Dakuta. The orcs, who respect essentially nothing made by human hands, who view imperial technology as inferior entertainment, who measure worth exclusively by the capacity for violence. The orcs respect the devil's claw. That alone should tell you something about what kind of instrument it is. Now let's talk about the two names you need to know. Colonel Iron Hand Straken commands the Catachan II Regiment. His right arm is a bionic replacement, and if you're wondering how he lost the original, the answer is a Miral land shark that took it at the shoulder before Straken killed it with his remaining hand. He didn't stop fighting. He finished the engagement, reported the injury to the Medicae as something that needed attention when convenient, and went back to operational planning. His bionic arm is calibrated well above standard augmetic strength ratings. During the Dulmalin cleansing, a hive tyrant, a tyrannid bioform the size of a combat walker, designed specifically to rip space marines apart, emerged from the darkness and began killing his men. Straken grabbed it by the throat with the bionic hand and drew his Catachan fang. It took 4 strikes to remove the hive tyrant's head. 4. When the demolition charges were detonated and the cavern began to collapse, Straken was unconscious from the engagement. Someone had to carry him out. That someone was Sly Marbo. Sly Marbo doesn't officially exist. His service record is classified. The details of his most notable operations have been placed under Imperial seal, which in practice means someone very senior decided that the specific information of what Marbo did and how he did it was either too useful to enemy intelligence or too improbable to allow into the official record. What has been confirmed through multiple independent witnesses, he was deployed alone into the industrial wastes of Armageddon during the Third War and destroyed multiple full-orc companies, not squads, companies, tasks that would require full assassination squads from the Ordo Sicarius. He managed it with a knife and whatever he found along the way. On Nordasa, he destroyed a Banalord Titan, a demon engine larger than a building by himself. The exact method is classified. On planet Galabad, a Dark Eldar raiding force took captives. Colonel Troutman led a rescue force. When they found the site, Marbo was standing alone, covered entirely in Dark Eldar blood, surrounded by destroyed vehicles and piled bodies, with the raiding leader's head on a stake. The rescue force rescued no one. Marbo didn't need rescuing. His name is an anagram. Marbo rearranged is Rambo. The Catachans named him after the only cultural reference they had for someone who fights entire armies alone and wins. Marbo isn't a man at this point. He's what happens when the worst planet in the galaxy spends 30 years refining a single human being into something the enemy doesn't have a tactical response for. When the Administratum tries to file his kill counts, they stop and mark the field, local extinction. He is the apex of what Catachan can produce, and Catachan produces nothing soft. This is the planet. These are the people. You were born here, which means you have already survived longer than 3 out of 4 humans who ever tried. You've killed things that would make a space marine reconsider his career. You forge your own weapons. You eat things that would hospitalize an ordinary soldier. You don't talk about fear, because the concept has been comprehensively beaten out of your psychology by 15 years of continuous mortal threat before you ever wore a uniform. The Imperium of Man has 10,000 regiments. It has titans and space fleets and psychers and assassins and genetically engineered transhuman warriors. It has everything. And when it needs someone to go into a jungle that is trying to kill everything inside it, it calls Catachan, because on Catachan, Tuesday was worse than this. You are not the product of the Imperium's finest training programs. You are the product of a planet that tried to kill you every single day of your life and failed. That's it. That's the whole thing. The jungle made you. The jungle doesn't make anything soft.